Hey kids, so Aaron Burr, the vice president who killed Alexander Hamilton in a duel, the vice president who attempted to take over part of the United States and rule it as his own, the vice president who was charged with treason. Yeah, that vice president. Well, what if I were to tell you that in 1861, an anonymous author wrote an erotica novel about Aaron Burr's life, which may or may not be based off true stories during Burr's life? Well, it's true. In today's quick history episode, I'm going to talk to you about the Amorous Intrigues and Adventures of Aaron Burr, the strangest book in American history. Though the Amorous Intrigues goes over a ton of topics, including Burr being arrested for treason, his duel with Alexander Hamilton, I'm instead going to focus on what I believe are the funniest parts of the book, which is the very, very in-depth research on Aaron Burr's sex life. For instance, in chapter 1, the book literally goes over when Aaron Burr lost his virginity. According to our unknown author, Aaron Burr did not have sex before the age of 17, which I guess is good to know. Apparently, the woman he lost his virginity to was a woman named Adelaide King, who was 18 years old when her and Burr had sex. According to the text, Adelaide did not have the advantage of strict or Gentile education, which is perhaps the very reason that Adelaide drew the attention of Aaron Burr. Her total want of affection, united to extreme beauty, both of form and feature, and the most soft and feminine manners, combined with the brusque style of the nose school, interested him exceedingly. So this is basically the 19th century way of calling someone a whore. But the chapter goes on to describe Adelaide's bodily features, such as her small waist, voluptuous hips, full calves, and small foot. This book is ridiculous. Unfortunately, at first, Burr's a little shy around Adelaide, which is the author attributing it to him being a small man with a small stature. Yet, when they go to a ball, Burr grabs her tightly, and I quote, inflicted a dozen kisses on her dainty red lips. Adelaide was honored by this because Burr was a wealthier man than her, and there were plenty of daughters from wealthy farmers for Burr to pick. But he picked little Adelaide. Apparently Adelaide fell in love with Burr, but due to Burr's playboy nature, they could not be together. Still, even mentioning her name still arouses emotion out of our great vice president. See, you are getting to see what I mean here. This book is crazy. And keep in mind, this is stuff from the first chapter, and it gets stranger and stranger from here. In chapter 2, they describe how Aaron Burr has become a great man, but he's only 5'6". The chapter goes on to have Burr harass some lady on a horse named Miss Dudley. After a very awkward conversation with Miss Dudley, which included Burr commenting on how attractive his horse was, Miss Dudley and Burr start hooking up. In the makeout session, the author uses exemplary language, much as if a young sheep had reclined upon the bosom of a lion to enjoy the tender sympathy of the king of the forest. Wow, that's some hot stuff. 50 Shades, you have some competition. The whole time, they make disgusting sexual references to horses, including saying Angelina, who is Miss Dudley, continuously, and I quote, mounted her horse the whole day. But is she really talking about horses? Who knows, but I think we know what mounting the horse means. Chapter 3 is where things start to get a little spicier, as Burr is worried about his little affair with Angelina is going to get discovered. But he has something weirder go on. One extremely weird thing that happens in this chapter is Burr actually thinks about fucking his cousin. Yep, our vice president is a cousin nuzzler. In the chapter, it says, and I quote, but he very unexpectedly encountered at the breakfast table a beautiful blonde, a Miss Edwards from New York, a distant relative who had formed an acquaintance with his sister. Later it says, by the evening, the letter was forgotten entirely. He had kissed the lips of the handsome blonde and found them sweeter than the honey of the hybla. I don't even know what the hybla is, but I do not want to know. So that's right. Aaron Burr went from being in love with Miss Dudley to building a love triangle with his cousin. And he's not from the South. Okay, I'll move on. But later in the chapter, Burr sees Miss Dudley at church, which is surprising to him because she's not a godly person. Burr finds himself in this love triangle, and he doesn't know what to do. This is just like Twilight, guys. This is the inspiration for Twilight, guys. Here's the quote. In this dilemma, our hero perceived that his chances with Miss Edwards was sacrificed forever if he gave Angelina Dudley the preference. The love triangle continues into chapter 4 as Burr has no idea what to do about the two women. It continues for a few more chapters, but come on, let's be honest, you guys don't actually care about the plot of this terribly, terribly written book. So how about instead, I just go over the crazy shit that happens, and this is stuff that Burr apparently did in his real life. You're on board? Okay, great. In chapter 6, Burr shows that he is a true character, as he spends the chapter going after a widow. Yeah. Apparently, this widow hasn't been with a man for over a year. In the chapter, it states, the young widow processed warm and tender feelings. Her husband had been taken sick before the honeymoon was in its wane, and for a whole year, she had not even received a kiss from one of the opposite sex. Her feelings rose higher and higher, till the swelling tide had begun to overwhelm her. Burr's arm was already around her. Later it states, his lips had touched the sweetest, most beautiful bosom that ever fired the soul of man, when she suddenly became conscious of her awful position. You rock star, Aaron Burr. Another hilarious tale comes from chapter 9, when Burr has sex with a dissatisfied wife. Upon hearing about the wife, Burr is a little apprehensive, but he soon gets on board when someone uses the magical word of, the wife is beautiful. Beautiful, you say, says Burr. Upon reflection, the wife narrated how one so youthful should have learned so much of the female heart and should be able to satisfy its desires when the raging fire of passion has once been kindled. In chapter 10, this is where things get really weird. Burr goes after nuns. Because these nuns have basically never seen a young man before, the story makes a huge emphasis on how sexy Aaron Burr is. These girls feasted their eyes on the handsome young soldier, as if they would gladly devour him like so many wolves, if they could obtain permission to do so. Whatever he did, whichever way he turned, their eyes clung to him. Was Aaron Burr an attractive man? Probably not, but to this author, I guess he was. Of all the nuns, one stood out to Burr, which was Sister Catherine, who had a different name before she became a nun, but who really cares? They refer to her as Catherine the whole time. Anyway, Sister Catherine was yearning for a man's touch, and she was just abandoned by a soldier who went for another woman because obviously she's a nun and can't do anything. According to Burr, Catherine was the most, and I quote, handsome of the nuns. They eventually hook up, which is so strange because the girl's crying on the floor and Burr basically convinces her to sleep with him. In the text it says, she caught his lips between hers and sucked them till they were bloodless. Yuck. Viewer discretion for what's about to come next. The text goes on to say, oh, sweet man, oh, blessed man, oh, heavenly man, let me eat a piece of you. You have so thrilled me. God, this book is so fucking weird. Why did I choose to read this? This is a couple hours of my life I'll never get back. Okay, so they eventually have some pillow talk, and that's the end of Burr's nun fetish. But yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. The nun fetish has been going on since the 18th century, and honestly, probably longer. So if you see a girl at a Halloween party in a nun suit, just show her the book. That's how I pick up the ladies. Wink, wink. In the next two chapters, Burr has an affair with another woman named Miss Moncrief, but it's not really interesting, so we'll move on. The next chapter is funny, though, because they rope George Washington into all this, and they have this long quote from George Washington, but I'm very glad they didn't say that George Washington had an affair with a bunch of nuns, because if that's not the case, then I would have to make another In Defense of Washington video if I had to do that. This now brings me to the last chapter, which basically goes over the rest of Burr's life. For instance, it talks about Burr's wife, Theodosia, his duel with Alexander Hamilton, his eventual arrest and treason penalties, and basically just his life and death. It wasn't a really funny chapter, and it was basically just a crappy Wikipedia article, but I honestly think they include this just to build some validity behind the story. So, I guess for you who have made it this far and have painstakingly listened to the erotica novel of Aaron Burr, you're probably wondering, is this a true story? I mean, I don't know, man. Some of these stories could be true, but a lot of them sound so far-fetched because I do not believe Aaron Burr is an attractive man. I'm sure some people think so, but I really, really hope these stories are true because they are so funny. But him wanting to fuck a bunch of nuns is gold, but I just can't see it happening, especially with them claiming that they were all over him. I don't know, maybe I don't see Aaron Burr as a sex icon, but perhaps he was a sex icon in the 18th century. Anyway, do y'all find the intrigues and adventures of Aaron Burr as funny as I do, or am I just a weirdo for sharing it with you? This video is probably not going to get pushed out, and I'd be surprised if more than 10 people watched it. But whatever, I found it funny, and I wanted to read it and share it with you, which is literally the reason why I have this YouTube channel, just to read random stuff about history and share it with the rest of you. But remember to like and subscribe if you want more quick history videos. Thanks, guys.